guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video. It is August now. School starts for me in a few days. And I thought, what better way to deal with and or take my mind off of the crippling, damn near paralyzing and acne-inducing anxiety of school starting than to do a reading wrap-up video. This will be my July reading wrap-up video. I read 11 books in July. I have them all written down right here. July honestly was a mixed bag of a reading month for me. I read some books that were incredibly memorable, and then I read some that were not. Before we start, actually, I want to know, guys, down in the comments whether or not you guys have read any of these books that I'm going to talk about, or whether or not you guys want to read any of these books that I'm going to talk about, okay? Let me know down below. With that being said, let's get right into it. The first book that I read in the month of July was Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is about vampires in Mexico City. It's about a woman named Atal who is a vampire who is descended from the Aztec blood drinkers of old, and she is being chased down by these cartels who want her dead. And she meets up with this human named Domingo who she ends up teaming up with in order to try and outrun these guys. I gave Certain Dark Things 3 stars. I liked it. I think it's a pretty solid vampire book. I personally just found myself being bored halfway through it. I was more interested in the world and the lore that Silvia Moreno-Garcia puts in this book than the characters themselves. At the back of the book, there's like a glossary and more details about the different types of vampires that you meet. It's really, really cool. It reminded me a lot of Underworld and Night Teeth. If you like those movies, it reminds me of a mixture of the two of them with obviously an added degree of Queen of the South. But it's still a pretty solid vampire novel. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. It's not horrible. It's just not one of my favorite books of all time. The next book that I read, if you guys had seen my last vlog, you guys will know basically about the next 3 books on my list. One of them being Sweat and Soap Volume 1 by Kintetsu Yamada. Sweat and Soap is a manga series about this girl named Asako, and she perspirates a lot and she's very self-conscious about it, and she works at this really popular toiletry company, and one of the lead product developers named Kotaro is obsessed with her, specifically with her smell. And so the romance between the two of them blossoms, and I gave this 5 stars. Okay, I need to read the rest of the series. It's outrageous. All right, hear me out. I know it's outrageous. The dude literally loves the way she smells. He sniffs her. He like goes feral over her scent. I understand this. However, at the same time, it is the he fell harder trope to the highest degree, and that in itself will never, ever not make me fold. It's really, really cute, okay? And just, it's really refreshing as well because the communication between the two of them is just really healthy, which I think should say a lot. However, okay, if you're looking for an outrageous but also at the same time cute and funny and short manga series, I definitely recommend Sweat and Soap. The next book that I read for the month of July was Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. This is about 3 mercenaries who are hired by this woman to go with her to basically check on her nephew who has been taken to this really isolated, really religious encampment called Little Heaven. Just to check up on him, and the second they arrive, some really insidious stuff starts to happen. I got this book because it was supposed to be a disturbing book, it was supposed to be a culty book, and so I was like, you know what, sign me up. And boy, did it take me for a wild ride, all right? This book is now one of my favorite books of all time. It is disturbing, it is unsettling to the highest degree, and it's culty too. And the thing that's really interesting about it is that it uses the dual timeline type of thing and it doesn't muddle it, which in my opinion is very hard to do, and I've rarely seen books that do it well. And also there's obviously, like I said, a cult thing, and it's like a religious type of cult, and the pastor that we meet Nick Cutter says at the back of the book that he took pieces of Jim Jones' speeches and put that into the preacher speeches. It fully establishes a feeling of doom and dread that you are just waiting and dreading to see what the hell is going to happen to these characters. All right, I absolutely love this. I cried at the end of this just plainly because it's a bittersweet ending. It's up there honestly with the Book of M, so I would say if you like the Book of M and just culty books and disturbing books, I would wholeheartedly pick up Little Heaven. The next book that I read for July was Lilac by B.B. Reid. This is a romance, a reverse harem romance about a woman named Braxton Fawn who joins this band named Bound. They're uber famous all over the world, and the three members of the band, Houston Morrow, Lauren James, and Jericho Noble, do not like her. Okay, so basically it's about Braxton trying to stay afloat and at the same time bridge these guys back together, because for whatever reason these guys used to be best friends attached to the hip, but now they can barely even stand and be in the same room together. This is also a new favorite book of all time for me. This is probably the best reverse harem book I've ever read. This is also the only reverse harem book that I've read that has this much jealousy in it. Okay, and yes, I tabbed it. All right, green for Jericho, blue for Lauren, purple for Braxton, because homegirl is a bad bitch. All right, and then red for Houston. I read this physically, but I started on the audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic. All right, it's a full cast, and each one of them acts like the rent is due. All right, they acted that audiobook out with their whole chest, their entire wishbone, I would say. It's thick, and I know I said before when talking about the Spanish love deception that romance books should never be 500 pages long, let alone near 500 pages long. I'm a hypocrite born, bred, and raised. I accept that, I acknowledge that, and let's move on. I had such a fun time reading this. All right, the banter in here is hilarious. The guys are amazing. We actually see some really good character growth from every single one of them. Braxton, like I said, I love her. She's a bad bitch. All right, she's not a ditz. She's probably one of my favorite. She's probably a new favorite character of mine. And even though these guys are toxic and bitches love to forget that, it's me. I'm bitches. I really do love this story. This story is fun. It has twists. It has really good plot, in my opinion. And just, yeah, if you're looking for a funny and angsty, oh my gosh, an angsty reverse harem romance, go with this. All right, and there's also some male action in here too, so this could also be a good LGBTQ plus representation book. The fifth book that I read for July was Twilight by Erin Hunter. This is the fifth book in the second sub-series of the Warrior Cats saga as a whole. I gave this 3 stars. I'm going through a Warrior Cats reread because I have a few super editions that I would like to read, and also I want to do more tier ranking Warrior Cats characters and possibly just a tier ranking of Warrior Cats books in general. I feel like that would be pretty fun. Anyway, I gave this 3 stars. 3 plainly because it has like a really influential battle in here that will always remain in my head. But again, I didn't give it 4 stars plainly because I forgot just how annoying younger Squirrelflight and younger Leafpool are. Don't get me wrong, I like Leafpool, however, I wanted to deck the hell out of her every single time she threw up the Brightheart slander. We don't do that in my presence, all right? Do it behind my back, but if you do it to my face, I will knock you out. Twilight was okay. It's not the best Warrior Cats book I've read, but it's definitely up there. Even though I gave it 3 stars, it's definitely a high 3. Next, we have Pyre by Perumal Murugan. This is a book that I read for my book club, and it basically follows Saroja and Kumara-san, and they're very much in love, but they're both from different castes. And so when Kumara-san brings Saroja back to his village, they face a lot of backlash, and it's all about them just trying to survive and their relationship trying to survive in this really traditional society, basically. I gave this 4 stars. This book made me so angry. And I think that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you angry. It's supposed to make you horrified for the couple, because it's very extreme in some cases and it's very cynical, especially regarding romance and love. But it uses those things in order to emphasize just how bad some of the things are that happen in this book. Okay, quite frankly, I would liken this to Kim Ji-young, born 1982. Okay, that book made me so angry, but it was such an eye-opening book. This is an eye-opening book too, and it's also a translated work. It's really quick. It's just a really good book, but again, it's not a happy book. Okay, so like I said, if you like Kim Ji-young, born 1982, I really do recommend this book. Now, we have the two books that I DNF'd this month, one of them being Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashardoust. This is like a Snow White retelling. And yeah, I DNF'd this book at 28%, basically on page 104. I did not rate it because I have a new highly solidified rule that if I don't make it to at least half of the book, then I can't rate it. I would say it's a solid retelling. It just didn't give me anything new, or at least anything that I hadn't seen before. Every single time I went to go pick it up and I was reading it, I would just automatically think of A Curse of Roses by Diana Pingicha. I would say if you like that book, I would read this one, or vice versa, quite honestly. I just was not enthralled by it, I should say. It's a solid book, just wasn't for me. With that being said, we get to the second book that I DNF'd, which is Clay by David Almond. This is about a boy named Davy who befriends this other boy named Steven, who basically has this talent of making things come alive out of clay. And they make this human out of clay, which turns out to be able to come alive and therefore starts acting very, very malevolent. I DNF'd, where did I DNF this book? I DNF'd this book at 5% on page 14. The writing style was not for me. Not for me in the slightest, okay? It was very choppy. There was little to no transition words between the sentences, which just irked the hell out of me. The sentences were basically structured like this. They did this, they did that, then they did this, they did this. This happened after that. I don't really know how else to describe this other than it was choppy, all right? The writing style in here was choppier than I'm sure some of the waves that Bethany Hamilton has experienced. It was just not for me. Then the next book that I read for July was Sunset by Erin Hunter. This is the book that follows Twilight. And I also gave this 3 stars. Nothing really happened in here. Other than what happens at like the very end. Pretty much this whole book is just build up for ending the entire series. The only reason why I didn't give it 2 stars was because of the ending, but there were a few plot holes in here that I caught, and also this just solidified my hatred for Ashfur. Fuck Ashfur. All my homies hate Ashfur. I just don't like the dude. I don't like him at all, okay? And just okay. Again, not my favorite Warrior Cats book I've ever read, but I would say a solid ending to the second sub-series as a whole. We're on to the second to last book, and this is the book that I rated the lowest. Out of all the books I read in July, this is Contagion by Amanda Milo. This is about a human woman and an alien being abducted from their respective planets, and they have to break out and find a way to survive on this planet that they have no idea where the hell they are, and a romance blossoms between the two of them. I gave this 2 stars. It's a fairly short book. It's a monster lover book, so I mean that was the reason why I picked it up. It was just mediocre. First of all, he's very big, he has sharp teeth, he has sharp claws, and he's just very intimidating, and yet she warms up to him like that. There was also something to do in here with a sexual assault that was just kind of glossed over and never talked about again, which didn't sit right with me. Also, the dialogue in here was like, it had me rolling my eyes to the point where I was pretty damn sure they would roll back to the back of my head. The alien is germophobic, and I mean severely germophobic, to the point where he has like panic attacks and anxiety attacks over like touching or just the proposition of germs. And every single time he has these anxiety attacks or these panic attacks, the woman kisses him to shut him up, which I know isn't written to shut him up, but that's what it came off to me as. It read to me as your panic attacks and your anxiety attacks will just completely disappear with love, with the idea of love. And it's, as someone who's had a number of panic attacks don't go away that easily. And then the last book that I read for the month of July was Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. This follows Paul Muad'Dib Atreides 12 years after the events of Dune, and he is in the full height of his empire, and there is a conspiracy to take him down. I gave Dune Messiah 3 stars. It was a pretty solid Dune book. I would say that it is much different from the original Dune. First of all, because it's damn near half the length, okay? But also, Dune was more hopeful and more inspiring. I guess Dune Messiah is darker and more political. It has a lot of politics in it, which at times did confuse me, but I wanted to keep reading and I wanted to see what it was. And they did explain themselves afterwards. It was just at the point in time I was like, okay, I have to put this down and like figure it out in my head, you know, which isn't bad, but I do know that it does annoy some people. If I had rated this book in the emotional state that I was in when I finished it, when I got to the ending of Dune Messiah, I would have given it 4 stars, because the ending is 4 stars worthy. I don't often give out half or quarter ratings, but if Goodreads ever updates and actually fixes that, Dune is definitely a 3.75 for me, or it is a high 3 star. I would say that this book definitely introduces a lot of different and a lot of, I would say, taboo stuff, because at one point I was sitting there being like, Frankie, can we not do what I think you're gonna do? All right, because imagine Monsters Inc., right? With all the different doors, and Frank Herbert had me by the lip and was just like dragging me along and opening all these doors and being like, this is a plot line that could go down. This is a plot line that's being introduced. This is something that could happen. And I'm sitting here looking at one specific plot line, and I think if people have read Dune Messiah, y'all know what plot line I'm talking about. Or potential plot line that I'm talking about here, okay? And I was just looking at it like, please don't push me through that door. Please don't push me through that door, Frankie. Thankfully though, Frankie heard my prayer and did not go down that road. And yeah, I'm really excited. I want to read Children of Dune. I want to read the rest of the Dune series. I just want to know what's gonna happen. And yeah, I would say that this is a pretty solid sequel to Dune. All right, it's almost the opposite of Dune, where I said, you know, Dune was hopeful. Meanwhile, this one is kind of like more sensing dread and sensing doom. All right, I look at Dune and then Dune Messiah as like a full circle of I guess Paul and his gift, or as he calls it, an affliction in and of itself. I just loved it. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. So you guys, those were all the books that I read in July. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope that you guys will pick some of these books up, all right? Because even though I may have given them 3 stars, they're not bad books, okay? They just probably weren't for me, or they weren't my favorites, okay? So with that being said, you guys, I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you will stay tuned to the rest of my channel. Bear with me here, all right, because my second year of college is starting, and it is going to be anxiety inducing, and therefore I may not be uploading as often, but bear with me, okay? I'm not taking a break. It's just I will be focusing more on studies, because at the end of the day, I'm paying to go to college. I'm not paying to be on YouTube, okay? So I hope that you guys are staying safe and that you guys have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.